The arrival. The skies over New York City darkened as massive ships appeared seemingly out of nowhere, their sleek, silvery hulls reflecting the fading sunlight. Traffic screeched to a halt, and pedestrians stopped in their tracks, necks craned upward in a mixture of awe and terror. The day humanity had long speculated about had finally arrived. Earth was facing its first alien invasion. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, lead astrophysicist at the Arecibo Observatory, had been among the first to detect the anomalies in Earth's orbit. She'd spent sleepless nights poring over data, trying to make sense of the unprecedented readings. Now, as she stood on the roof of her apartment building, watching the ships descend, a chill ran down her spine. This was far beyond anything she had imagined. In Washington, D.C., President Samantha Mitchell received the news with a grim expression. The Joint Chiefs of Staff crowded around her in the Situation Room, their faces a mix of determination and barely concealed fear. "Madam President," General Marcus Hawthorne began, his voice steady despite the circumstances, "we need to make a decision. Do we attempt communication, or do we strike first?" President Mitchell's eyes narrowed as she considered the options. The weight of the entire world rested on her shoulders. "We try to communicate," she said finally. "But I want our forces ready to respond at a moment's notice. We will not be caught unprepared." As world leaders scrambled to formulate a response, the alien ships remained ominously silent, hovering over major cities across the globe. Hours ticked by, tension mounting with each passing minute. Then, without warning, a blinding light erupted from the ships, bathing the cities below in an eerie, pulsating glow. In Central Park, Jake Conner, a former Navy SEAL turned private security consultant, shielded his eyes against the light. His military training kicked in as he assessed the situation, looking for any sign of immediate threat. Around him, panic was starting to set in as people fled in all directions, their screams piercing the air. Suddenly, holographic projections appeared in the sky, visible to everyone on Earth. The image that materialized left humanity collectively stunned. The aliens were humanoid and unmistakably female. Standing at least 7 feet tall, with iridescent skin and piercing, luminous eyes, they exuded an aura of power and superiority. One of the aliens stepped forward, her long, silvery hair flowing around her as if suspended in water. When she spoke, her voice resonated in every human mind, transcending language barriers. "People of Earth," she began, her tone a mixture of condescension and amusement, "we are the Valkyrians. Your planet now belongs to us. Resistance is futile and, frankly, beneath beings of our stature. Submit, and you may yet find a place in our new order." As the message concluded, chaos erupted worldwide. Military forces scrambled to respond, but their weapons seemed to have little effect on the Valkyrian ships. Missiles exploded harmlessly against invisible shields, while fighter jets were swatted out of the sky by beams of energy that seemed to defy the laws of physics. In New York, Jake Conner watched in horror as the Valkyrian ships began systematically dismantling the city's infrastructure. Skyscrapers crumbled like sandcastles, bridges collapsed into the rivers, and entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble in a matter of minutes. The air was thick with dust and the acrid smell of destruction. As he helped a group of shell-shocked civilians take shelter in a subway station, Jake's mind raced. The Valkyrians' technology was clearly far beyond anything humanity possessed. But something about their demeanor, the almost theatrical nature of their arrival, nagged at him. There was more to this invasion than met the eye. Across the Atlantic, in a secret underground facility beneath the streets of London, Dr. Amelia Hawthorne, one of the world's leading experts in xenobiology, watched the unfolding events with a mixture of fascination and dread. As reports flooded in from around the globe, she began to notice patterns in the Valkyrians' behavior. "They're toying with us," she muttered, her fingers flying across her keyboard as she compiled data. "This isn't just an invasion, it's a show of force." Back in Washington, President Mitchell stood before a hastily assembled press conference, her face etched with determination. My fellow Americans, citizens of the world, she began, her voice unwavering. We face an unprecedented threat to our very existence. But let me be clear, humanity will not go quietly into the night. We will fight, we will resist, and we will prevail. As her words echoed across the globe, pockets of resistance began to form. In the streets of Paris, a group of civilians managed to bring down a Valkyrian scout ship using nothing more than improvised explosives and sheer determination. In Tokyo, a team of hackers worked tirelessly to breach the aliens' communication systems, searching for any weakness they could exploit. But for every small victory, there were countless defeats. The Valkyrians' superior technology and seemingly limitless resources allow them to crush most organized resistance with ease. Within days, major governments had fallen, and Earth's military forces were in disarray. As the first week of the invasion drew to a close, Jake Connor found himself leading a ragtag group of survivors through the ruins of what was once Midtown Manhattan. They moved silently, avoiding the Valkyrian patrols that now roamed the streets. Jake's mind was focused on one goal: reaching the remnants of the U.S. military that were rumored to be regrouping in the Catskill Mountains. As they paused to rest in the shell of an abandoned building, a young woman named Sarah, barely out of her teens, turned to Jake with tears in her eyes. "Why are they doing this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do they want from us?" Jake met her gaze, wishing he had a better answer. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do know one thing: they've underestimated us. Humanity has faced impossible odds before, and we've always found a way to survive. This time won't be any different." As night fell over the conquered Earth, the Valkyrian ships continued their relentless patrol. But beneath the surface, in hidden bunkers, remote mountains, and the depths of the oceans, humanity began to rally. Scientists worked tirelessly to understand the alien technology, military strategists devised new tactics, and ordinary citizens found extraordinary courage. The Valkyrians may have won the first battle, but the war for Earth's future was far from over. As Jake Connor led his group out of the ruined city, guided by the stars above, he felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but he knew that as long as humans continued to fight, to adapt, and to believe in themselves, there was still a chance. Little did Jake know that his journey would soon intersect with Dr. Elena Rodriguez's scientific insights, Dr. Amelia Hawthorne's xenobiological discoveries, and a global resistance movement that would challenge the Valkyrians in ways they never anticipated. The stage was set for a conflict that would not only determine the fate of Earth, but would reshape the understanding of both species and their place in the cosmos. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Jake Connor and his band of survivors pressed on, carrying with them the indomitable spirit of humanity. The Valkyrians may have mocked Earth, but they were about to learn that underestimating the human race was a mistake they would come to regret. The resistance rises. The Appalachian Mountains loomed in the distance, their familiar silhouette a stark contrast to the alien landscape Earth had become. Jake Connor, his clothes tattered and face streaked with grime, led his group of survivors towards what they hoped would be sanctuary. Among them was Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the astrophysicist whose insights had become invaluable in understanding their new reality. "Quantum entanglement," Elena muttered, her eyes distant as she walked. Jake glanced at her, eyebrow raised. She caught his look and elaborated. "It's how they're communicating instantly across vast distances. If we could just find a way to disrupt it." Their conversation was cut short by a low, pulsating hum. "Valkyrian scout ship," Sarah hissed, pointing to a sleek, dart-like vessel skimming the treetops. "Everyone down," Jake ordered, his military training kicking in. The group scattered, taking cover beneath the dense foliage. As the ship passed overhead, Jake noticed something odd. "Wait a second," he whispered, squinting at the vessel. "That's not Valkyrian tech." The ship suddenly dropped altitude, landing in a nearby clearing. The group held their breath as the hatch opened, revealing not the towering form of a Valkyrian, but a human figure. "Well, I'll be damned," A familiar voice called out, "Jake Connor, you ugly son of a gun. I thought you were dead." Jake's face split into a grin as he recognized his old Special Forces buddy, Marcus "Wrench" Rodriguez. "Wrench, how the hell did you get that bird?" As the group emerged from hiding, Wrench patted the ship's hull proudly. "Let's just say the Valkyrians aren't the only ones who can play the technology game. Welcome to the Resistance, folks." Inside the ship, which Wrench had dubbed Frankenbird, the survivors got their first glimpse of hope. Screens displayed a global network of resistance cells, each working on different aspects of combating the Valkyrian threat. "We've got people reverse engineering their tech, others running guerrilla operations, and some working on what we're calling Project Achilles," Wrench explained as he piloted the ship towards a hidden base. "Project Achilles?" Elena asked, her scientific curiosity piqued. Wrench grinned. "Every enemy has a weakness. We just need to find the Valkyrians' heel." As they approached the base, hidden deep within an abandoned mine system, Jake couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Humanity, despite being outgunned and overwhelmed, refused to give up. The base was a hive of activity. Scientists huddled over salvaged Valkyrian technology, soldiers trained with makeshift weapons designed to counter alien physiology, and a diverse group of hackers worked tirelessly to breach the invaders' communication networks. Dr. Amelia Hawthorne, the xenobiologist Jake had heard about, greeted them as they disembarked. "Mr. Connor, Dr. Rodriguez, your arrival couldn't be more timely. We've made a breakthrough." In a secure briefing room, Amelia revealed their findings. "The Valkyrians aren't just technologically advanced," she explained, pulling up holographic displays of alien DNA. "They've engineered themselves to near perfection. Enhanced strength, accelerated healing, extended lifespans. They've eliminated what they see as biological weaknesses." "But that's not all," she continued, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "We've detected something extraordinary in their genetic makeup. It appears they've integrated quantum particles into their cellular structure." Elena gasped. "That's how they're achieving instantaneous communication. Their bodies are literally entangled at a quantum level." Jake leaned forward, his tactical mind racing. "So, if we could disrupt this entanglement, we could potentially cut off their ability to coordinate," Amelia finished. "But more importantly, we believe this quantum integration is key to their supposed invulnerability to our weapons." The implications were staggering. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had a glimmer of hope, a potential chink in the Valkyrians' seemingly impenetrable armor. As the briefing concluded, alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. "Valkyrian patrol incoming," a voice shouted over the intercom. Jake sprang into action, years of combat experience taking over. "Wrench, get Frankenbird ready for evac. Elena, Amelia, grab every bit of data you can. We can't let this fall into their hands." Chaos erupted as resistance members scrambled to either defend the base or evacuate critical personnel and information. Jake found himself back-to-back with Sarah, the young woman who had been with him since New York, now wielding a scavenged Valkyrian energy weapon with surprising skill. "Looks like those shooting lessons paid off," Jake quipped as Sarah took down a Valkyrian scout with a well-placed shot. "Let's hope your hand-to-hand skills are just as good," Sarah retorted, nodding towards the imposing figure of a Valkyrian warrior charging their position. The alien was a terrifying sight, nearly 8 feet tall, with iridescent skin that seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. Jake had never faced one in close combat before, and as he squared off against the Valkyrian, he realized just how outmatched humans were physically. The Valkyrian moved with impossible speed, her strikes carrying enough force to shatter concrete. Jake dodged and weaved, using every trick he'd learned in years of Special Forces training. But he was fighting a losing battle, and he knew it. Just as the Valkyrian was about to land a killing blow, a blur of motion caught Jake's eye. Sarah had leaped onto the alien's back, jamming a makeshift device into the base of the Valkyrian's skull. The effect was immediate and shocking. The Valkyrian's movements became erratic, her coordinated attacks dissolving into clumsy swings. Jake seized the opportunity, landing a series of precise strikes that finally brought the warrior down. "What the hell was that?" Jake panted, staring at the device Sarah had used. Sarah grinned, holding up the small, pulsing gadget. "A little gift from our science team. Quantum disruption field. Looks like it works." As they made their way to the evacuation point, Jake's mind raced with the implications of what had just happened. They had found a way to level the playing field, even if only temporarily. Frankenbird lifted off just as the main Valkyrian force breached the base's outer defenses. As they soared into the night sky, Jake watched the place that had been their sanctuary disappear in a ball of fire, a necessary sacrifice to cover their escape. In the ship's hold, Elena and Amelia pored over the data they had managed to save. "We've got enough here to start replicating the quantum disruption technology on a larger scale," Elena said, her eyes alight with possibility. "And with the genetic samples we've collected," Amelia added, "we might be able to develop more targeted countermeasures." Jake nodded, a plan already forming in his mind. "We've been on the defensive since this war started. I think it's time we take the fight to them." As Frankenbird streaked across the sky, its occupants battered but unbroken, a new chapter in the resistance against the Valkyrians was about to begin. Humanity had discovered its first real advantage, and Jake Connor was determined to make it count. Little did they know, their actions had not gone unnoticed. High above the Earth, in the Valkyrian command ship, the alien leader known as Artemis watched the escape with narrowed eyes. For the first time since the invasion began, she felt a flicker of something she had thought long forgotten: doubt. "These humans," she mused, her melodic voice tinged with a mix of annoyance and grudging respect. "Perhaps they warrant closer study." As both sides prepared for the next phase of the conflict, the stage was set for a battle that would challenge not just the military might of the combatants, but their fundamental understanding of themselves and their place in the universe. The war for Earth was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would redefine the concept of humanity and push the boundaries of what was thought possible. Quantum Leap. The Resistance's mobile command center, a retrofitted cargo ship christened Nexus, sailed silently through the storm-tossed waters of the North Atlantic. Inside its hardened hull, a war council was in session, the air thick with tension and the faint smell of ozone from overworked computer systems. Jake Connor stood before a holographic display of Earth, red dots indicating Valkyrian strongholds pulsing ominously. "Operation Stardust is a go," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's hopes. "We hit their quantum communication hubs simultaneously. If Dr. Rodriguez's calculations are correct, we'll create a cascading entanglement collapse." Elena stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "The theory is sound, but we're pushing the boundaries of known physics here. The potential for unintended consequences is significant." Amelia Hawthorne, the xenobiologist, nodded gravely. "We're not just disrupting their communication. We're tampering with the very fabric of their biology. The ethical implications alone." "Ethics," Sarah interrupted, her young face hardened by months of guerrilla warfare. "They invaded our planet, slaughtered millions. I'd say ethics went out the window a long time ago." Jake held up a hand, silencing the brewing argument. "We're all aware of the risks and the moral quandaries, but right now, this is our best shot at turning the tide. Wrench, how are we looking on the tech front?" Marcus Wrench Rodriguez grinned, pulling up schematics of a sleek, angular device. "Say hello to the Q-bomb. Quantum disruption on a massive scale. One of these babies goes off, and every Valkyrian within a 50-mile radius is going to have a very bad day." As the team delved into the final preparations, a low, pulsating alarm suddenly echoed through the ship. "Proximity alert," the ship's AI announced. "Unknown object approaching at high velocity." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that left even the battle-hardened team speechless. A massive crystalline structure was rising from the depths of the ocean, water cascading off its translucent surfaces in shimmering sheets. "My God," Elena breathed, her scientific mind racing to comprehend what she was seeing. "It's some kind of biomechanical construct. The energy readings are off the charts." Before anyone could react, a blinding light engulfed the nexus. When it faded, Jake found himself standing in a vast, otherworldly chamber. The walls pulsed with an inner light, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with barely contained energy. "Welcome, humans," a melodious voice echoed around them. A figure stepped forward, unmistakably Valkyrian, yet different from any they had encountered before. Her skin was a swirling galaxy of colors, and her eyes held depths of wisdom and sorrow that seemed ancient beyond measure. "I am Lyra, last of the Valkyrian architects," she continued, "and I bear a truth that will shake the foundations of both our worlds." What followed was a revelation that redefined everything humanity thought they knew about the invasion. The Valkyrians, Lyra explained, were not conquerors, but refugees. Their own world had been consumed by a cosmic horror known as the Void, a sentient darkness that devoured entire galaxies. "We came to Earth not to subjugate, but to save," Lyra's voice trembled with emotion. "Our warriors, in their arrogance, believed that only through domination could we prepare your species for the coming storm. They were wrong." Jake's mind reeled as he processed the implications. "The Void, it's coming here." Lyra nodded solemnly. "Even now, it stretches its tendrils towards your galaxy. We have perhaps a decade before it arrives. Less, if we continue this senseless conflict." Elena stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her initial shock. "But your technology, your biological enhancements, surely you can fight this thing." A holographic display shimmered into existence, showing the devastating power of the Void. Entire solar systems winked out of existence in its wake. "We tried," Lyra said softly. "For millennia, we fought. But the Void adapts, consumes, grows stronger with each victory. Our quantum integration was our last, desperate attempt to evolve beyond its reach. And now you've brought this threat to our doorstep." Sarah spat, her hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Lyra's eyes met Sarah's, filled with understanding and regret. "We had no choice. But in our fear, we made a grave error. We underestimated humanity's potential. Your adaptability, your creativity in the face of overwhelming odds. These are the very qualities needed to face the Void." Jake's tactical mind was already racing, processing this new information. "So where does this leave us? We can't exactly call a truce after everything that's happened." "Not a truce," Lyra agreed. "An alliance. One born of necessity and forged in the fires of shared adversity. Together, we might stand a chance against the darkness that comes." As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the crystalline structure. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing a massive Valkyrian fleet approaching. At its head was a ship that dwarfed all others, the command vessel of Artemis herself. "It seems," Lyra said with a grim smile, "that the time for secrets has passed. Are you ready, humans, to help me convince my people that the future lies not in conquest, but in cooperation?" Jake looked at his team, Elena, her mind already buzzing with the possibilities of combining human and Valkyrian science. Amelia, seeing not aliens but potential allies in the fight against extinction. Sarah, her anger tempered by the weight of this new threat. And Wrench, his eyes gleaming with the prospect of getting his hands on even more advanced tech. "Well," Jake said, a wry smile playing at his lips, "we did come here to change the course of the war. Might as well go big or go home." As Lyra's hidden base rose to meet the approaching Valkyrian fleet, the stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just the fate of Earth, but of all sentient life in the galaxy. The lines between friend and foe blurred, and the true battle, the one against the encroaching Void, was about to begin. In that moment, as humans and Valkyrians stood side by side, facing an uncertain future, the true meaning of humanity was about to be redefined. It wasn't about the planet you came from or the form you took, but the spirit that drove you to fight against impossible odds, to reach out to former enemies, and to dare to hope even in the darkest of times. The war for Earth had become something far greater, a war for the very survival of consciousness itself in a universe that suddenly seemed much darker and much more vast than anyone had ever imagined. Cosmic chess. The crystalline structure, now revealed as an ancient Valkyrian arc ship named Celestial Harmony, rose from the depths of the Atlantic, water cascading off its iridescent surface. As it breached the clouds, the approaching Valkyrian fleet came into view, a breathtaking array of sleek, biomechanical vessels that filled the sky. Jake Connor stood on the command deck, surrounded by an unlikely alliance of humans and Valkyrians. The air crackled with tension and possibility. Incoming transmission, Wrench announced, his fingers dancing over holographic controls. It's Artemis. The imposing figure of the Valkyrian leader materialized before them, her eyes narrowing as she took in the mixed crew. "Lyra," she hissed, "you dare betray our people." Lyra stepped forward, her form shimmering with barely contained energy. "No, Artemis, I dare to save them. The humans are not our enemy, they may be our last hope against the void." What followed was a battle of words and wills that would determine the fate of two species. Lyra and Jake presented their case, weaving a tapestry of shared peril and potential alliance. Elena and Amelia offered scientific insights that even the advanced Valkyrians found intriguing. As the debate raged, Sarah noticed something odd on one of the sensor displays. Guys," she interrupted, pointing to a swirling anomaly at the edge of the solar system. "Please tell me that's not what I think it is." All eyes turned to the screen, and a collective gasp rippled through the command deck. The void, that cosmic horror they thought was years away, had arrived early. "Impossible," Artemis breathed, her composure cracking for the first time. "Our calculations were based on incomplete data," Elena finished, her mind racing. "The quantum entanglement between our species must have created a beacon, drawing it here faster than anticipated." For a moment, silence reigned as the enormity of the situation sank in. Then Jake did something unexpected. He laughed. All eyes turned to him in shock. "Sorry," he said, wiping tears from his eyes. "It's just, here we are, on the brink of annihilation, and we're still arguing about who gets to be in charge. Talk about rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic." His words broke the tension, and suddenly, improbably, Artemis laughed too. It was a sound that seemed to surprise even her. "Perhaps," she said, a newfound respect in her eyes, "we have more to learn from you humans than we realized." With the immediate threat of conflict between humans and Valkyrians averted, the combined fleet turned its attention to the encroaching void. What followed was a flurry of activity unlike anything either species had experienced before. On Earth, governments and resistance groups alike mobilized, pooling resources and setting aside old grievances in the face of extinction. Valkyrian ships descended not as conquerors, but as allies, bringing with them technology beyond human imagination. The Sahara Desert was transformed into a vast quantum computer array, its algorithms working to predict the void's movements. The Amazon rainforest became home to massive bioreactors, synthesizing new forms of matter that could withstand the void's corrupting touch. In orbit, a joint task force led by Jake and Artemis oversaw the construction of the Cosmic Aegis, a planetary shield that combined Valkyrian energy manipulation with human ingenuity. But as the days turned to weeks, and the void crept ever closer, it became clear that defense alone would not be enough. They needed a way to strike back, to wound the cosmic predator that threatened all life. The answer came from an unexpected source. Sarah, whose youth and adaptability had allowed her to bridge the gap between human and Valkyrian, thinking more easily than most, proposed a daring plan. "We've been thinking about this all wrong," she explained, standing before a holographic model of the solar system. "We can't fight the void with conventional weapons or energy. We need to use its own nature against it." Her plan was audacious, borderline insane. Using a combination of Valkyrian quantum technology and human theoretical physics, they would create a false vacuum, a bubble of space-time with altered physical laws that would be anathema to the void's existence. "It's like fighting fire with fire," Elena mused, her eyes alight with the possibilities. Or in this case, fighting nothingness with a different kind of nothingness. The next month was a blur of feverish preparation. Every resource, every mind, every ounce of strength was poured into the project. Valkyrians worked alongside humans, their former animosity forgotten in the face of shared purpose. As the day of reckoning approached, Jake found himself standing with Artemis atop the celestial harmony, watching the shield flicker to life around Earth. The planet below was a hive of activity, billions of souls united in a singular purpose. "You know," Jake said, breaking the contemplative silence, "win or lose, I think this is humanity's finest hour. We faced our worst nightmares, and instead of breaking, we reached for the stars." Artemis nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "Perhaps that is the true nature of sentience, the ability to grow, to adapt, to find hope even in the darkest of times. Our peoples are more alike than we ever realized." As if on cue, the sensor arrays lit up. The void had arrived at the edge of the solar system, its unfathomable darkness beginning to devour Pluto. "Well," Jake said, straightening his shoulders, "I guess it's time to save the universe." What followed was a battle unlike any in the history of either species. The combined fleet engaged the tendrils of the void, buying time as Sarah and her team prepared to launch the false vacuum device. Ships winked out of existence, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. The planetary shield flickered and strained under assaults that defied the laws of physics. And through it all, the unlikely allies fought side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of annihilation. As the void reached the orbit of Mars, Sarah's voice crackled over the comms. "Device is hot. We're ready to light this candle." Jake and Artemis shared a look. This was it, the moment that would determine the fate of not just Earth or the Valkyrians, but of all life in the universe. "Send it," they said in unison. The false vacuum device streaked towards the heart of the void, a pinprick of light against the all-consuming darkness. For a moment, it seemed to be swallowed up, lost in the cosmic horror's endless hunger. Then, impossibly, gloriously, the void began to retreat. Where the device had struck, a new kind of space blossomed, one in which the void could not exist. It spread like wildfire, chasing the darkness back across the solar system. Cheers erupted across the fleet and on Earth below. Against all odds, they had done it. Humanity and Valkyrians, former enemies turned allies, had faced down the greatest threat in the history of the universe and emerged victorious. As the last vestiges of the void disappeared from their sensors, Jake turned to Artemis, his eyes shining with emotion. "So," he said with a grin, "what do we do for an encore?" Artemis laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief. "My friend," she said, gesturing to the starfield before them, "now free of the void's taint, I believe we have a whole universe to explore, together." As the combined fleet began the journey back to Earth, a new chapter in the story of both species was about to begin. The war that had started with misunderstanding and fear had transformed into an alliance that would reshape the galaxy. Humanity had not just survived, it had evolved, proving that the true measure of a species lay not in its technology or physical prowess, but in its capacity for growth, adaptation, and cooperation in the face of overwhelming odds. The future stretched out before them, filled with possibilities beyond imagining. And as Jake Connor looked out at the stars, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them not as humans or Valkyrians, but as something new, a united force ready to write the next chapter in the cosmic story. Cosmic Renaissance. The dawn of a new era broke over Earth, its skies now shared by sleek Valkyrian vessels and the fledgling ships of humanity's reborn space program. 5 years had passed since the defeat of the Void, and the planet was barely recognizable. Gleaming spires of crystal and steel reached into the clouds, fusion-powered maglev trains crisscrossed continents, and in every major city, quantum gateways pulsed with the promise of instantaneous global travel. This was the fruit of human-Valkyrian cooperation, a symbiosis that had propelled both species into a new age of discovery and innovation. Jake Connor, now sporting a few more grey hairs and the title of Ambassador to the Stars, stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, a massive orbital habitat that served as the headquarters for the newly formed Cosmic Alliance. "Quite a view, isn't it?" came a familiar voice. Jake turned to see Artemis, the former Valkyrian commander, now his co-chair in leading the Alliance. "Never gets old," Jake agreed, his eyes scanning the bustling activity below. Shuttles zipped between Earth and the station, carrying diplomats, scientists, and pioneers from a dozen newly contacted alien races. Their moment of reflection was interrupted by an excited shout. "Ambassador Connor, Consul Artemis, it's happening." They rushed to the main control room, where a crowd had gathered around a holographic display. At its center was an image that took Jake's breath away, a swirling vortex of energy, beautiful and terrifying in its complexity. "The Nexus Gate is stabilizing," Dr. Elena Rodriguez announced, her voice trembling with excitement. "We're about to make history." The Nexus Gate was the culmination of 5 years of intense research and development, combining Valkyrian quantum manipulation technology with groundbreaking human theories on wormhole creation. If successful, it would open a doorway to the other side of the galaxy, ushering in a new age of exploration. As the final countdown began, Jake felt a tug on his sleeve. He looked down to see Sarah, now a respected xenanthropologist, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Can you believe it?" she whispered. "We're about to step into the real final frontier." Jake smiled, remembering the scared young woman he'd met in the ruins of New York all those years ago. Her journey was a microcosm of humanity's, from fear and survival to wonder and discovery. Nexus Gate activated. Elena's voice cut through the tension. The vortex in the hologram stabilized, its edges shimmering with possibility. "Probes are away," Wrench announced from his station, his fingers dancing over holographic controls. "Telemetry coming in now. Holy shit." The room erupted in gasps and excited chatter as the first images from the other side of the galaxy flooded in. Alien worlds, some teeming with life, others holding mysteries beyond imagination, filled the screens. "Well," Jake said, turning to Artemis with a grin, "looks like we've got some exploring to do." But their excitement was short-lived. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station, and the holographic display flickered ominously. "Multiple quantum anomalies detected," Elena shouted, her face pale. "The gate, it's become unstable." The vortex that had been a doorway to new worlds was now a swirling maelstrom of chaos. Strange energies poured through, warping the very fabric of space-time around the station. "Shut it down," Artemis commanded, but it was too late. With a blinding flash, the Nexus Gate imploded, leaving behind a tear in reality itself. As the dust settled and emergency systems kicked in, the true scope of what had happened became clear. The gate hadn't just collapsed, it had punched a hole through the barriers between dimensions. Through this cosmic wound, they caught glimpses of realities beyond comprehension. Worlds where the laws of physics were mere suggestions, realms of pure energy, and universes so alien that merely perceiving them threatened sanity. By the stars, Artemis breathed, her usual composure shaken. "What have we done?" Jake's mind raced, processing the implications. They had opened Pandora's box on a cosmic scale. But as he looked around at the faces of his team, human, Valkyrian, and a dozen other species united in this grand endeavor, he felt a surge of determination. "What we've always done," he said, his voice carrying across the stunned silence. We've challenged the boundaries of the possible, and now we'll face the consequences, learn from them, and push even further. As if in response to his words, a new alarm sounded. Incoming transmission, Wrench announced, his voice filled with disbelief. It's coming through the rift. The holographic display flickered to life once more, revealing a being of pure light and geometry, its form constantly shifting in ways that defied comprehension. "Greetings, young ones," a voice echoed in their minds, somehow conveying amusement and infinite wisdom. "It seems you finally knocked on the door of the greater cosmos. We've been waiting a long time for this moment." Jake and Artemis shared a look of amazement. They had set out to explore the galaxy, only to find themselves on the threshold of something far grander, a multiversal community of intelligences beyond imagination. "Well," Jake said, a wry smile playing at his lips, "I guess the adventure is just beginning." As Harmony Station buzzed with frantic activity, preparing for a new chapter in cosmic history, Jake Connor realized that this was the true legacy of humanity's unlikely alliance with the Valkyrians. They had not just saved Earth or defeated the Void, they had propelled themselves into a new epoch of existence, where the very concept of humanity would be redefined across infinite realities. The war that had begun with fear and misunderstanding had led them to the precipice of cosmic enlightenment, and as representatives from 1,000 dimensions began to pour through the rift, each bringing knowledge and challenges beyond imagining, Jake knew that the real story of humanity's place in the universe was only just beginning. This was more than a cosmic renaissance. It was the birth of a new form of existence, one that transcended the boundaries of species, planets, and even reality itself. And at its heart stood the indomitable spirit of adaptation and cooperation that had allowed humanity to rise from a conquered Earth to the very pinnacle of multiversal civilization. The future that stretched out before them was infinite, filled with wonders and terrors beyond comprehension. But as Jake Connor looked out at the swirling rift of possibilities, he knew one thing for certain: whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, as one united cosmic family.